Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I'm sorry. Dear everyone who isn't a middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry. I started life at the top of a ladder while you were born on the first rung. I say now that I would change places with you in an instant, but if given the opportunity, would I? Probably not, because to be honest, being privileged is awesome. I'm not saying that you and me on different rungs of the ladder is how I want it to stay. I'm not saying that any part of me has for a moment even liked it that way. I'm just saying that I fucking love being privileged and I'm not ready to give that away. I love it because I can say fucking and not one of you is attributing that to the fact that everyone with my skin color has a dirty mouth. I love it because I don't have to spend an hour every morning putting on makeup to meet other people's standards. I love it because I can worry about what kind of food is on my plate instead of whether or not there will be food on my plate. I love it because when I see a police officer, I see someone who's on my side. To be honest, I'm scared of what it would be like if I wasn't born on the top rung. If the tables were turned and I didn't have my white boy privilege safety blankie to protect me. If I lived a life lit by what I lack, not what I have. If I lived a life in which when I failed, the world would say, told you so. If I lived the life that you live. When I was born, I had a success story already written for me. You were given a pen and no paper. I've always felt that that's unfair, but I've never dared to speak up because I've been too scared. Well, now I realize that there's enough blankie to be shared. Everyone should have the privileges that I have. In fact, they should be rights instead. Everyone's story should be written, so all they have to do is get it read. Enough said. No. Not enough said. It is embarrassing that we still judge each other by the size of our paycheck, the size of our paycheck, the color of our skin, and the type of chromosomes we have. It is embarrassing that we tell our kids that it is not their personality, but instead these same chromosomes that get to dictate what color clothes they wear and how short they must cut their hair. But most of all, it is embarrassing that we deny this. That we claim to live in an equal country, in an equal world. We say that women can vote. Well, guess what? They can run a country, own a company, and throw a nasty curveball as well. We just don't give them the chance to. I know it wasn't us 10th grade white boys who created this system, but we profit from it every day. We don't notice these privileges, though, because they don't come in the form of things we gain, but rather the lack of injustices that we endure. Because of my gender, I can watch any sport on TV and feel like that could be me one day. Because of my skin color, I can eat at a fancy restaurant without the waitstaff expecting me to steal the silverware thanks to my parents' salary. I go to a school that brings my dreams closer instead of pushing them away. Dear white boys, I'm not sorry. I don't care if you think the feminists are taking over the world or the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten a little too strong, because that's bullshit. I get that change can be scary, but equality shouldn't be. Hey, white boys, it's time to act like a woman, to be strong and make a difference. It's time to let go of that fear. It's time to take that ladder and turn it into a bridge. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Royce Mann. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And today I want to share with you a few lessons that I've learned over the last 2 years of my life. And for me, these last 2 years have been sort of an extended 15 minutes. You see, to give you some background, it was May 2016, and I had just started at a new school. It was actually the first school I had ever been to. You see, I was homeschooled up to this point. And on this particular day, we were having my school's annual poetry slam. And on this day, my life changed in two ways. You see, first, there was a guy named Jossie Ross who was there to judge the poetry slam and speak to my school. And he said something that really impacted me. Talking to a room full of 7th and 8th graders, he said, "You are not the leaders of tomorrow. You are not the leaders of tomorrow," he said. "You are the leaders of today." And I remember sitting there as he said that, thinking, how can I be a leader now? At the time, I was 14 years old. How can I be a leader? How can I speak up for the issues that I care about? And the second way my life changed that day is I was given the platform to do just that. You see, that day, I performed in the poetry slam at my school. I won that slam, and the video of my performance got over 1 million views on YouTube. And to give you a little more background, first off, as you may have figured out, the poem that I performed that day was the one that I performed just a few moments ago called White Boy Privilege. And as you might expect, being in a country that is very reluctant to confront its sexist and racist past and present, I got a variety of reactions, let's say. And just to give a little more background, I have grown up in a family that always encouraged me to speak up for the issues I care about, whether it was my parents taking me to marches when I was younger, taking me to the Pride Parade, to Obama's first inauguration. You see, I had always been sort of an activist, and performing had also been a part of my life. Here's an article from when I was Tiny Tim in a local production of Christmas Carol. And philanthropy had also been a part of my life, because when I was younger, each acting job that I did, I acted a lot. Each acting job that I did, I would take a portion of those earnings and give it to a charity that I was passionate about. And so standing up for what I believed in and also being in the public light to an extent wasn't something new, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. You see, as I said, I got a variety of reactions. I got everything from backlash and threats, people saying, "I hope this child gets beaten. I hope his face gets burned horribly in a fire." Thank you for that, Rob Wilson. And people saying, "I hope his parents need to be euthanized." Thanks for the input, Morgan Lee. To praise. Celebrities tweeting about me, being invited to talk shows, being able to perform all around the country. And to a lot of people, I was seen sort of as a hero to an extent, as somebody who was extraordinary, as sort of this anomaly of a young person. And for a while, this got to my head, to be honest. I remember thinking for a few weeks, wow, I am the shit. But slowly I began to realize that my going viral was an example of the very privilege I spoke of. The fact that I got that much attention just for acknowledging my white male privilege wasn't a testament to who I am. It was a testament to the problems we still have in this country. It showed how low the bar is. And so that brings me to, out of everything that was said about me, probably the thing that is my favorite, which comes from Jezebel magazine. They said, "He's a teen whose empathetic perspective got him crowned the wokest of them all, almost overshadowing the fact that these ideas merely made him a decent young human." There was nothing extraordinary about what I had said, which brings me to lesson 1. It's not about me. It's about the message, not the messenger. It's about the change, not the change agent. And sometimes we forget this. I know I did when I was getting that much attention. And so it's important that we actively question our motives and hold ourselves accountable to the cause we are fighting for. So that means asking who/what am I doing this for? And who/what will this benefit? And this applies especially to those like myself who are trying to ally themselves to another community. Which brings me to this quote from Jossie Ross, a guy who said that thing earlier that really stuck with me. He's become sort of a mentor of mine. And this is a quote from a song that he wrote called White Privilege 3 in response to Macklemore's song White Privilege 2. And he said, "Real allies realize they don't always have to speak. Don't have to Instagram whenever they go out on the street at this protest right now. Oh my God, it's so neat. Just shut up and listen. If you're asked to leave, just leave. White privilege is making a song out of someone else's pain, making $1 million off of it, then doing it again. Find a new cause next time. This is all personal gain. You get an award. Our life's exactly the same. Now you're an icon, and ain't nothing changed." And in this song, he basically tells Macklemore, thank you for trying to help. But if you really wanted to help, you would pass the mic. Which brings me to lesson 2. With a platform comes great responsibility. And that means you have to share this platform. So pass the mic, you gotta walk the walk. And for me, that meant that when my poem first went viral, I made a deal with myself that I would only continue writing poetry and speaking up about problems if I was actively doing something in my life to address those problems. And then I made another deal with myself that said I would also actively educate myself on the issues I wanted to speak about, which meant reading more, which meant just seeking out educational opportunities, going to workshops, etc. And then also it's important to have a balance between talking and listening and teaching and learning. Just because you have a platform doesn't mean you always have to use it. And we have to remember that having a platform is a privilege, and oftentimes it is privilege that gives someone a platform, as it was in my case. So that brings me to this quote from DeRay McKesson that he said in an interview with Stephen Colbert when Stephen asked him, how can I use my white privilege for good? And he said, you can extend that privilege so you can dismantle it, so you can create opportunity for people, you can amplify issues in ways that other people can't, and you can use your resources to create space for people. In other words, there's a specific role for people who have those privileges. And that brings me to lesson 3, which is we all have a place in the conversation/movement, but we each have a specific role. How do you find this role and maximize your impact? Well, you ask yourself, am I utilizing my unique perspective? This also ties into, am I adding value to the conversation or just taking up space? And a little story, there's a poem that I used to perform a lot. I wrote it after I wrote White Boy Privilege. It's called All Lives Matter But. And it's a poem, I agree with every word I say in it. I'm very passionate about the issues that I discuss. But I realized that I'm not utilizing my unique perspective in that poem. And I feel like because of that, I'm more taking up space in the conversation instead of adding value to it. And you also have to ask yourself, am I standing/speaking up with others or for them? We can never truly understand another person's experience. And so instead of trying to speak for someone, it's important to utilize your unique perspective and then through that strengthen your mutual platform, and which in turn amplifies their voice as well. And you also want to ask yourself, am I working in the space where I can have the best impact? Now, what I'm about to say could really be taken out of context. In the future, it could really come back to haunt me. But to be honest, when I'm giving talks, I prefer to talk to a room full of white men. Because I feel like when I'm talking about issues of race and gender, those are the only people that I might be able to teach something to. There's no point in me talking to people of color about oppression that they face and I don't. I might know stats, but I still don't have that experience. But I think it is possible and very probable with the effort I've made to educate myself that I might be able to teach something to people from sort of my own community, if you want to say. And you want to ask, who needs to hear what I have to say? And to whom is my knowledge useful? And then also remember that preaching to the choir can only do so much. Preaching to the choir, talking to those who already agree with you, it's good for mobilizing people to action, but it can only do so much. And that brings me to lesson 4, which is dialogue is key. And so some keys to dialogue. Never compromise your values, but remember, your set of beliefs is a living document. Seek out and accept different viewpoints. They exist, so no point in ignoring them. And acknowledgement goes a long way. And this is different from agreement. This is basically saying, I see you and I hear you. And this is oftentimes the seed for common ground. And so I want to finish off with another short poem. And the subject of it doesn't totally relate, but it's a poem that I wrote a little while back, and I feel like I do a good job utilizing my unique perspective and talking about an issue that doesn't necessarily impact me in the ways that it does other people, but something that's very personal to me and using my own experiences. And so here it goes. Recently, I became a man. I didn't have a bar mitzvah. My dad didn't take me fishing or hunting. I didn't grill my first hamburger, hit my first home run, or have my first wet dream. But recently, I became a man. It happened the first time a woman avoided me on the sidewalk. See, I just had baseball practice, and I was walking to meet my mom at a restaurant when the woman 10 feet in front of me glanced back. I knew she was looking at me, but I had no idea what she was seeing. The separation between us was undeniable, but the distance wasn't enough. She changed direction, crossing the street like Moses did the Red Sea, trying biblically to find freedom from me. Her footsteps taught me the danger of my own hands, taught me what it truly means to be a man, though I may never know what it means to fear one. You see, in that moment, I finally understood Peter Pan. I wanted to stay a boy, not become a man, because a man, as I now knew, was a mix between a father, brother, and attacker, mostly the latter. I wonder, the first time a woman avoided him on the street, did Brock Turner feel the same way? I mean, we can't be that alike. He was a star swimmer. In that moment, I was trying not to sink. But then again, you can't spell rapist without an I. And then again, there's 2 of you in sexual assault. And then again, it takes you and I to achieve a solution. You know, there's something in the air of a locker room that makes me feel sick. Something about hanging with the guys that makes my throat constrict. And it's not the body odor, it's the toxic masculinity. It has a distinct smell, a little like the high school junior who grabs an ass every time down the hallway, trying to colonize female bodies like his ancestors did these lands. He is fully aware of the power of his hands. It smells like unsolicited dick pics, like emotions bottling up until they form bruises. It has a distinct smell. It smells like a dugout, like the guys inside talking about girls the same way they do baseballs, telling each other to smash both. It smells like my baseball uniform used to. Like punchlines to my old jokes, it smells like every time I don't speak up. To the first woman who avoided me on the sidewalk, thank you. And I'm sorry. I should have crossed instead, and I want to let you know that the second time I did, and the third as well, each time momentarily mistaking the cracked street for my own reflection and the other side for your safety, silly me. To my fellow boys, it's time that we cry. Cry for ourselves and for what we've done. It's time that we question our own innocence, because Brock Turner wasn't born a rapist. When he was a kid, he played with girls on playgrounds. It wasn't until he got older that he learned to treat girls like playgrounds. For every student, there are many teachers. We must confront our own complicity. Then, only then, will we truly be men.